to the CatholicPsych Show. Today's topics include discussion of Blessed Carlo Acutis, maybe some more stuff about the Pope. We're going to try and stay positive. Our top story at the top of the hour, vampire priests. I'm very excited about this article. I'm a psychologist, Dr. Bryan Violette, Catholic psychologist. I'm here with my partner in crime, Catholic psychologist, Dr. Bottaro. 3 times a week, we go live for you and try to make sense of this world that doesn't make much sense. We're ambassadors of the Catholic Psych Institute, where we help people with their psycho-spiritual issues, and we teach people how to do the same. Dr. Greg, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling great. It's Friday. Got an awesome weekend planned. Exciting things happening.
Okay.
And just feeling great. Summertime's on us. Greenery outside, foliage popping, flowers blooming. Life is good.
That spring shirt you're wearing, I was just saying, it's going to look great for the thumbnail. What are you doing this weekend?
Taking my son on a camping trip, doing a little camping.
Okay.
And then tomorrow evening, there's a local event. It's called the Meet and Greet, which is in Connecticut. It's a men's event, and it's a big barn party with fire, explosions, meat.
I love sodium.
I keep putting meet and greet on the calendar, and then my wife changed it. She edited it. She's like, somebody misspelled meat. I was like, no, that was on purpose.
That's intentional. It's meat.
It is meet and greet. So I'm really excited about that. And it's gonna be fun. This is camping with my son. We have 10-year-old milestones. We do trips with, we have it planned out to do 10-year-old trips.
Oh, cool.
And this is what Elijah wanted to do. He wanted to go camping. So
it's alone time with dad.
Haven't been camping in a long time. So
cool.
Getting myself psyched up for it, but I do have fun.
Sharpening your knife.
That's right.
Practicing your tent building skills. You know how to build a tent or what?
That's right. Yeah. The tent's easy. But now, I'm bringing a blowtorch for the fire. It's like we have this is
using flint.
no flint here. We're just stop off at the store, get some nice meat, some burgers, and it'll be fun. Do some fishing. Be a good time.
Very good.
What about you? What do you got planned for the weekend?
Oh, I'm going up to Storyland. Very excited to go to Storyland with my kids and my family. We're going to be in it. We're going to be live. I'm going to be super engaged dad, and I'm going to enter the moment. These are it's a memory maker weekend, as my wife would put it. We're making memories.
Storyland's making the memories.
So not camping or eating meat with men. Instead, engaging with the children.
Well, we're going to have to follow up on that next week and find out how that went.
Yes, I'm excited. So speaking of eating meat, top story today. I don't
nice segue. Wow.
I'm going to try and keep it together because I was just reading this story and was in hysterics. I think this is the funniest story. Florida priest accused of blinding a woman during a dispute at Sunday Mass and could be charged with battery. Okay. A woman attended a 10 a.m. service at St. Thomas Aquinas Church in St. Cloud on Sunday and tried to take communion, the Diocese of Orlando said. She had a brief discussion with Reverend Fidel Rodriguez, who told her she hadn't taken the proper steps to secure communion. Essentially said, you need to go to confession before I give you communion. I don't know how he knew this. And I mean, he knew something going on in her interior life, and it was brought into the public forum. The woman returned for a service 2 hours later and again tried to take communion. When Rodriguez asked her whether she had performed the prerequisite of confession required by the Catholic Church to receive the Eucharist, she told him it was not his business. That's what she told the priest. So St. Thomas Aquinas Church, some of the details are scanty here, but at that point, the woman forcefully placed her hand in the vessel and grabbed some sacred communion hosts, crushing them. Oof. The priest, who only had one hand free, struggled with the woman. She refused to let go of the host. The church said the woman then pushed Rodriguez, who bit her hand so she would let go of the host she grabbed. and was immediately asked to leave.
I mean, this is outstanding. Outstanding current events grab here.
I love this. This is just in. This came across my news line this morning. What do you think about this story?
This brings up there's so many layers to this we could discuss. I mean, there's so many elements: theology, psychology.
Yes.
Real fascinating situation. First of all, do you know that there's do you know about Florida Man?
Yes, I've heard of Florida Man.
There's always news stories. A Florida man crashes his car into a hospital building.
They're outrageous stories, always.
They're like absolutely outrageous stories. So now we have Florida priest.
Yes.
That was my first thought. I saw that headline. I was like, we've
I'm just like, it's like something out of a Happy Gilmore or Adam Sandler movie. I can just picture the priest just grabbing her arm and just biting it. So funny that this actually happened.
Florida man gets ordained, so now we have Florida priest, and now it's like as outrageous as any other Florida man story.
It's outrageous. So what do you think? What's your impression?
I mean, first of all,
he's right.
Maybe.
Let's get into this. Tell me why he may be wrong.
Well, first of all, Father Benedict Rochelle, he was an expert with the Rorschach. And he told a story how once he was looking at somebody's Rorschach. He came in to do a consult. Yeah. And they weren't sure about somebody, and he did the whole evaluation, and then he looked at the Rorschach responses, and then they're like, all right, what is your assessment? And he's like packing up his bag, he's getting ready to go. He's like, listen, he's like, he's probably fine, but just be very careful to watch for his biting. And they're like, what are you talking about? Watch for his biting. And they're like, he opened it up. He's like, well, here, and here we see cannibalistic tendencies. and essentially then he was explaining to us in how like all these different cards, the person was seeing meat and seeing all these like food, but then like mixed in with certain morbidity. There's like, there's all these different kinds of responses,
tearing and things like that.
Yeah. So there's like indications of trauma, indications of sort of a sadistic sort of tendency, and then also like the meat coming up in certain cards and certain things. He's like, watch out.
He's probably okay though.
He's probably okay. But he said, sure enough, like a month later, he got a call from the nurse on staff at this place. They were like, yeah, he was biting one of the orderlies. So that was the first thing I thought of. It's like that. What's going on here? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
who bites somebody's arm to get them to let go of something?
Well, let's go back a step though.
Okay.
Does he have the right to publicly address her interior forum, right? Like in front of other people, she's coming to communion. Like to what extent? Like to what not? I mean, I'm curious about how he would know her need to go to confession. That was not disclosed. Like, what is this? He's basically suggesting she's in a state of mortal sin based on some actions that she has committed, right?
Yeah, I can't claim expertise on this issue. Like, my gut sense, and this is like super qualified here, that this is not like canon law. I don't know the teaching on this specifically at this level, right. But I think that he does not have the right to say something like that,
to refuse her
her communion based on, I could be wrong. I want to couch that because anyway, I know we talk about these theological things a lot, so I think it's important to just,
we need a canon lawyer to call in. Are any canon lawyers out there listening to the show?
Anybody who, I don't even want to open it up to anybody who thinks they have the answer to that question. Because I think, it's maybe she's gotten spiritual direction, and maybe there was some discernment with somebody about the level of mortal sin that she might have been in.
Right.
And this is a really important conversation because a lot of people think, okay, if you sin, you can't go to communion. But that's actually not true. If it's venial sin. And this is one of Pope Francis's big issues. It's like, communion, he is a medicine for the sick. Right. And not a reward for the righteous.
Yeah, is not does not the Eucharist sort of, I mean, it takes in some ways like takes the place of confession for venial sin. You're like those sins are forgiven and wiped clean,
Well,
venial
not
sins.
not the not communion itself, but the mass.
Hmm.
The mass has the penitential rite.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea, is like we're all in venial sin probably most of the time on some level, whether we're aware of it or not.
Oh, since the show started, I've definitely committed several venial sins.
Whoops, there goes another one.
Yeah.
So we
Vampire priest. I'm like slandering that.
so we're definitely like, we have to clear the slate at the beginning of mass with the penitential rite, and then we go to communion. Hopefully, I mean, if you're at mass with family like I am, sometimes that we got to do another quick clearing of the slate right before on the walk up to communion, right? Just
That's right.
another.
Yep.
But mortal sin is a whole different story,
Right.
and this is where, and then I think the pendulum can go too far to the other side, where it's like, well, no, if you're in mortal sin, you have to go to confession before you receive the Eucharist.
And that's what's suggested by his behavior.
And that's what's suggested by that behavior. We don't know, but also mortal sin is like really deeply personal. That's very interior, and even if you have a spiritual director or a confessor who's helping you discern that and answering, asking the right questions to kind of process that, I'm pretty sure like the final sort of judgment is between oneself and God, in terms of like, did I really have full clarity on what I was doing and really fully choosing to do something that I knew was gravely disordered and sinful? And if that's the case, then of course that's mortal sin. And so then of course you got to go to confession before receiving the Eucharist.
Right.
But there's a lot of subjective interpretation in that. And then so to have a priest kind of acting like this in public, making this kind of stance. Now that's a whole nother question, because we also talked recently about like Biden receiving communion. That's a different judgment based on the public scandal.
Well, this is a question I have too, and I know this is a hot button issue, and we might get aggregated for this, but I know that there's a lot of discussion regarding those who have had a divorce and whether or not they're allowed to receive communion. And marriage is there's a public dimension to marriage. And I wonder, in this case, I mean, there's differences of opinion on that. It's very, I guess the official teaching is that it needs to be understood at a pastoral level and in the uniqueness of each case, in a conversation with your spiritual director, your local or your priest or your confessor about whether or not someone who's divorced should receive communion. But I'm wondering if that is part of it. Like it almost like allowed him to publicly deny her because she's publicly like living in, one would say, in sin, or from his perspective.
Yeah, maybe there's some nuance there. I do think, I mean, anything that I've read on this, it's usually very directed towards the sort of pastoral care of the either local pastor, or depending on the situation, the bishop. So yeah, maybe he did have the right to deny her communion.
Okay. So
let's assume he did.
Okay, let's assume he did for the moment. So she comes to communion, he says no. She comes back 2 hours later. He says, "Did you go to confession?" She says, "None of your business," and grabs and crushes the hosts. I mean, I could see how that would warrant a sort of like visceral kind of reaction, right? Like if someone punches you in the face, you're going to probably punch back. Like she used physicality. She reached her hand into the monstrance, right? That was called the monstrance, and crushed the hosts and tried and pulled several out, and he grabbed her arm and bit her. So like, to me, even at the risk of he's charged with battery, I mean, for the sake of protecting our Lord, it's probably the right call to bite her arm, isn't it?
Well, listen, I was not there. I don't know if he's seeing meat on his Rorschach cards. I don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know the deal. I do think that there's something commendable about having a really passionate response to defending our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament.
Imagine you were there. Imagine you were in the front row and you saw a woman reach into
I
the
would. I mean,
milkshake
I would
and crush
obviously
and
like.
crush.
You know, part of me would want to just jump up and tackle this lady. Like,
Right. Right.
I mean, there's demonic stuff that's possible. There's like, who knows what's going on, or it could just be someone with mental illness.
Yeah.
Like, you
Could be.
don't really know.
Right.
But biting somebody, I don't know.
His defense is that she, quote, attacked him first because he was trying to protect the sanctity of communion.
I mean, did you see the last line of what you posted for me to look at? It says, video evidence was recorded and given to authorities.
I got to see this.
Where
have to
is
see
the
this.
video of this? How do
have
we
to see
not
this.
have a video right now?
The only way he thought to extract her from it was to bite her arm. Because he only had one arm available too. So she's like, he's holding the monstrance.
Holding the ciborium.
Ciborium, rather. With monstrance is okay, right. The ciborium, and he only had one hand available. He had to kind of protect the sanctity of the community. Like, I get it. Bite.
I just feel like there's probably other recourse.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, what? Like to ask parishioners to help?
Yeah, like somebody get over here. Like, can we get some help over here? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was there a deacon? Was there a lector? Was there somebody else you could hand the ciborium off to? Like, what's going on with this? I don't know. That's questionable. Questionable at best.
Fantastic questions. I love this story. I think there's a hero in here somewhere. I'm just not sure where.
But I think there's a hero inside of all of us, and you know, probably some level there's a hero inside this lady. And there's a hero inside this priest.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's keep moving here. So Blessed Carlo Acutis, he loved TikTok. He's a big fan of the internet and TikTok and social media.
I don't know about TikTok.
Right? Just saying that to bother you.
I'm pretty sure TikTok did not exist when Blessed Carlo Acutis was alive.
I'm just saying that to get a reaction out of you. So he had a miracle. I mean, let's talk about him. Who is he? Do you know who he is?
So he's a teenager in Italy, who was a big gamer, and he was a big
gamer
kid, and he's sort of like just a regular down to earth kid who
coding too, big into coding, computer coding.
Yeah. So and he just had a passionate devotion and love for the Eucharist. Yep. He loved and church, like he just loved his faith. And it was like kind of surprising. Like he didn't really grow up with that, like a big deal. Like his parents were kind of converted through him. And then he developed a website to track all of the Eucharistic miracles around the world. So he actually built a website for that purpose. And that's kind of the extent of what I know about him. I don't know too much more else about him, except he's kind of like the patron of internet and gamers and teenagers.
On this show. We love Blessed Carlo. So he died in 2006 of cancer. So he died very young. That's important. And this is the second. So there's a miracle that was attributed to his intercession.
How old? Do you know how old he was when he died?
Let me see. I don't know how old he was when he died. He was young, like really young. I think he was in his teens. So the miracle was that there's a miraculous healing of a 21-year-old girl from Costa Rica named Valerie Valverde, who was near death after seriously injuring her head, and through his intercession, she was healed of this. And this is the second miracle attributed to Blessed Carlo Acutis. So this is paving the way for him to become the first millennial saint.
Yeah,
that's a big deal because he died young. We have possibility for someone to pray to with regard to all of our
I think that's amazing.
Internet troubles. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't think he would be on TikTok.
I think he would be on TikTok.
I don't think so.
I don't think he would be reforming TikTok. He would be doing what he could to draw the eyes of TikTokers everywhere to a focus on our Lord in the Eucharist.
I think that there's a spectrum, and I think that there is a too far. It's funny.
Mhm.
I have a good friend of mine who asks me questions like this all the time, and it depends on who I'm talking to, but it usually, like, it's funny. Sometimes I'll lean the opposite direction depending on who I'm talking with.
Because I'm so pro internet, you just disagree with me.
It creates this tension. I don't know why. I don't know if that's a me thing. Like, I always
That's a
have to
you
sort of.
thing. You could
I'm
just be
not
like,
like,
yeah, you could just be like, great point. You're right, Brian.
but you're picking a fight here. Like, what do you? I'm
He's
not gonna
15
be
years
like
old, by the way. He's
15.
15. Go on. Go on.
Anyway, buddy of mine is like, "Are you?" This is when Meta first came out, and there was that weird Mark Zuckerberg video of him like introducing Meta,
Yes.
and he's like, "So what are you gonna do with Catholic Psych? Are you gonna bring Catholic Psych into the metaverse?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Like, we have to go where the people are, and if that's where the people are, we should go there." I still think that there are lines that we have to draw somewhere in the sand. Like, I was thinking
Sure.
about this with TikTok. It's specifically because of the pornography. I was thinking about this. Like, when I grew up in Manchester, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And Main Street, Manchester, had Bennett Middle School, and then there was St. James Church down Main Street. And I'd go to like youth group after school, whatever. I forget once a week or whatever it was. And walking down street, I remember we passed this store called Choice Video. And it was just Choice Video across the top of the store, and then shades over all the windows.
It was not Blockbuster Video.
It was not Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was. It was always like this curiosity.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what's in there? And it's like, why is it always closed or whatever? And then you get
Right.
older and it's like middle school, and then you're like, oh, you find out that, oh, there's bad stuff in there, and didn't really know what, but it was like, it was this weird thing. And I was thinking about, like, if we were going to put up like a billboard for Catholic Psych, if I was going to like engage with people, like, do like, at what level do you decide, okay, like, it's really good to go into Choice Video and like hang out in there?
No, it is not.
Because whatever was in there was at least in the 90s, it was sort of like illegal to open up your shades to even show to people passing by on the street what's shown on the inside.
Minors. Right, because of minors. It was the risk
because of minors.
Right.
And so, like, would I put Catholic Psych material inside? Like, someone might say, like, they need it more than anybody.
Right.
But then others would say, like, well, you also have to, like, walk into pornography and, like, subject yourself and be present to all this stuff around there.
Yeah.
And be involved, like, somehow be associated. Like, it's I think it's a valid question, and I think there's a point at which there is a line somewhere. Like, do you go into, like,
Sure.
what, a strip club? Do you put, like, brochures for Catholic Psych? Like, where do you draw the line?
Right. Yeah, we're talking specifically about the moral dangers of TikTok, but I think you go back and forth with, like, the value of the internet and social media, full stop. Right. I was talking to someone about
levels.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about our last episode, and they were shocked to hear that you would potentially get a Neuralink. Like, given everything you said before that, and you're like, yeah, I might get a Neuralink. Like, there is kind of an inconsistency.
And I think I kind of shocked you too.
I was surprised. I mean, in part of me was surprised. I know you want to be Tony Stark too.
I'm super pro technology. Like, we've done so much with technology. Technology is amazing. We just have to be really discerning about it and be in control of it and be intentional with it.
Right. Well, this leads me to another story. So we have a new, I guess the word is invention. A professor is trying to preemptively get a court to decide whether Facebook users can control their own news feeds. So you can kind of like wipe your kind of news feed and have control over what kind of ads and news you get. And this would probably be the first step would be on Meta and Facebook. But you can, there's a release tool that can allow you to unfollow everything. And so whatever cookies or whatever is determining what comes to into your news, you'd have control over that. So I'm wondering if that's applicable. That could be applicable to different platforms.
But why does that need a judge? What I don't understand. I already have a tool like that on my I have a plugin called Newsfeed Eradicator. So if I open up Facebook, I don't have a newsfeed.
Well, here, let me read it. So a new lawsuit asks whether social media users can control what they see on their Facebook feeds. Last week, the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University filed a lawsuit against Meta, Facebook's parent company, on behalf of the professor who wants to release a tool to empower social media users. University of Massachusetts Amherst professor Ethan Zuckerman would like to release a tool called Unfollow Everything 2.0. This browser extension would allow Facebook users to automatically unfollow their friends, groups, and pages, and in doing so, to effectively turn off their news feeds, which Facebook algorithmically sorts to drive user engagement.
Yeah, that's curious. I wonder why there has to be a lawsuit there. I literally have already. Well, mine just turns it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can you can plug in quotes. So if I open up Facebook, it just has like an inspirational quote instead of a news feed. So if I want to use it for like a Catholic Psych Facebook group or like whatever things I have on there that I use it for, I can just go directly to something that I actually want without being pulled into this whole social media disaster.
Yeah, one provision of the law provides immunity to software developers who have created tools to filter or disallow content the provider or user considers objectionable. The lawsuit asked the court to determine if a Facebook feed could fall into this category. So, the objectionable pornographic content on your TikTok feed, if an American company buys TikTok, you might be able to filter that out.
That'd be great. Again, I'm not black and white on this issue. It's a very nuanced, complex issue, but I do think we have to be more discerning. We're not just like wholesale supportive of everything coming out. And the way things are going, I think we have to just become increasingly filtering and discerning against what's provided.
For sure. Yeah,
especially when you have the communists behind all of it.
I had someone else that I was talking to about our last episode, and he was ready to cite some research which refuted that it was definitely that TikTok is definitely controlled by Chinese communist attempts to destroy the
absolutely.
It
could not be more of a fact.
All right, well, let's see people in the comments.
Whoever your listener is that thinks that's refuted, I will direct them to the evidence.
Okay.
Send this mail to mailbag@catholicpsych.com.
Okay. As long as we're in the world of the internet, we'll move to our next story here. New research from the US-based Pew Research Center found that nearly 40% of all web pages that were created in 2013 are no longer accessible due to a phenomenon they call digital decay. This is important because there's this idea that whatever's on the internet is on the internet forever. But the internet has now been around for long enough that web pages and blog articles and things that were created are disappearing. 8% of those web pages were created in 2023. So the internet is now believed to be no longer forever. What are your thoughts on this?
My first thought is actually just what are your thoughts on it? Like, why did you flag that as? Not saying it's not newsworthy, but I'm curious, like, what specifically you were thinking about it when you flagged it.
I have a life of conversion, Greg. I'm not the same person I used to be.
Well, good Catholic that you are.
Trying to continually grow and change. And so, there may be a picture of me from high school on a Facebook somewhere that I would not be all that excited about being made to be public, right? Like, I think that there's a world in which, like, the internet has come on so fast, and we have learned that whatever you put on the internet is forever, to the point where now people apply for jobs, and one of the first places the employers go is check people's Facebook pages, check people's social media, and there's this idea that, like, everything you do is under this level of scrutiny forever, and you can be held accountable. You see celebrities being held accountable for something they said 25 years ago, right? And like, people get stuck in time, and the choices they make, perhaps poor decisions that they make, are being held against them. They could get canceled, whatever. But what this is suggesting is that it's not forever. So it's kind of returning to a place where, you can make a mistake and move on, if there's such a thing as digital decay. So I think it's a good thing. I don't want, I look at myself like 2 weeks ago and I'm embarrassed of who I was. You look at yourself 10 years from now and you think about the way you thought about the world, what you're emphasizing, what you're pursuing, your shortcomings, your vices, your virtues. And it's like, oh man, I'm so glad I grew from that space. But it seems like the world has, uh, like no longer allows space for change and growth and healing and movement and virtue development, because people get stuck in time. And I think the internet is a big contributor to that, because we're part of this global society where what we do is captured and frozen. So if there's such a thing called digital decay, where we can't actually hold all of this information indefinitely, then I think it's ultimately good. What do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could see how part of you should want that, or is understandable that you want to have the things that you
Keg parties when I'm
Yes.
16 years old. I don't,
You don't want people to realize that that's part of the truth of who you really are. That's part of your history.
Sure.
But
Or it's not so much that. It's not that I'm ashamed of that time. Like, I've internalized it and integrated it into who I am and understand that that's where I was and whatever. But for things that mistakes people make in their past to be used against them, that I think is a slippery slope and a dangerous thing.
Well, I think that's a real problem when it's used against people, but that's what's wrong with our culture. It's like we don't have a culture of conversion. We don't have this allowance of growth and a development and maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's like kind of part of cancel culture and all this. I mean, that's obviously more than just that, but people are mishearing everybody in the first place, and then second to that, they also don't give them a chance. And what we're talking about is just, even if it's true about your past, you're still not getting a chance because people are judging you so hard.
And I don't mean to make this about me and choices I've made. I'm just thinking, even at a cultural level.
feeling the heat.
No. I'm saying it's really not about me. I like, look at movies. Look at the jokes, the humor in movies 10 years ago. Like, a lot of that stuff wouldn't fly today.
I don't know. I just think there's value to recognizing our whole journey. It's like it doesn't fly today, and that's okay. But it did fly 10 years ago. That should be okay too. That's when all these people are like, oh, we have to like virtue signal and come up with all these like apologies for these off-color jokes that were made in this movie from 1987. And it's like, just because that today people are like are snowflakes and are like operating on this whole different level doesn't mean that we have to rewrite history through today's lens. Like, maybe actually there's a way that today's lens is not correct.
Totally.
And that seems to be like so dangerous to start erasing history.
Well, I mean, erasing history is one thing. I'm talking about the natural decay.
Dangerous. I think we should be
decay.
Preserving history as much as we can.
My memory is naturally decaying. It's digitally decaying. It's analog. Is there an adjective there? Analogly decaying?
Analogously.
Analogously decaying? Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's first of all, my first thought was like, I don't know if I even understand. Well, I don't understand where the theory is or why that's even happening.
No, it doesn't give much. The article doesn't give much detail on that.
Because there's the Wayback Machine, which is awesome if you go look up the Wayback Machine, which you can use that. You can look up the internet snapshots of web pages from decades past, and it's really fascinating. We just recently did that with the CatholicPsych website, and we had our designer Mike Marshall, who's he's a committed, loyal listener to the show here, so maybe he's listening right now. Shout out to Mike. But he designed our first logo and first website back in 2012.
Yeah.
And then we recently hired him full time, and he's now improving everything that that I've touched since 2012 and messed up design wise. so it's been great to like look back, and it's kind of in the same spirit. It's humbling and also really informative.
Yeah.
And it's like helps us become even like I look back at okay, this is what was possible in 2012. Then it's like, oh, 2014, I can see I made this change on something and I messed it up. And it's like, oh, should we bring Mike back to fix everything? And it's like, let me look, 2014. Yeah, bring him back immediately. Like, get him on this, fix this now.
We've come a long way.
If looking back helps us to figure out how to move forward.
Sure,
that's my take on it.
Sure, I don't disagree with anything you just said.
Mike's listening. He put the eyes on there. I like brain grandchild way back machine. Like, yo, dog, I heard you like the internet, so I put the internet in your internet so you can internet while you internet. I've not seen that meme yet. It sounds like a meme. I like it.
That's great. Yeah, it doesn't give an explanation as to why. It says internet is an unimaginably vast repository of modern life, but even as users across the world rely on the web to access books, pages, news articles, and other resources, this content sometimes disappears from view. The research defined inaccessible links as a page that no longer exists on a host server, showing a 404 not found message. Researchers collected a random sample of web pages from Common Crawl, an internet archive search that takes a snapshot of what the internet looks like at any given time. The team sampled roughly 90,000 internet pages per year from 2013 to 2023 to see if they still exist. They found that Wikipedia, that some 54% of pages analyzed had at least one broken link in the references section. So they're just breaking. The coding is just breaking.
I think it's just, I don't think it's that.
This makes sense in the world of gaming too. Like what I've played games that last, 15, 20 years. And as you get new people coding on top of it, the code just breaks like just over time as you add new layers to it.
Right. But my point is that there's always a reason for it. It's not like some mysterious thing.
Yeah.
Like calling it decay, it's like, oh, we don't know what's happening. It's just like disintegrating over time. Like
it's
somehow
a broken link. It's
like some biological reality. Like you said, like we're getting older, our memory is decaying. Like I feel like with the internet, it's like it's hard coded. So there's a broken link. It means that there's someone who like didn't fix a link. There's a server that didn't get updated. There's you know what I mean? Like there's a reason
absolutely.
For it.
Yeah,
and if you want to preserve the internet, you can preserve it. You just have to put somebody on it and fix the problem.
Well, you got to be perfect. And that becomes increasingly difficult as layers of coding happen. That's the problem. It's like if you hire a new developer on a game that was made 12 years ago, they don't understand the coding that went into the original development. So
this is also fundamentally what we, I think people don't understand about the internet. It's like you think about it like this one big thing. It's like, oh, it's the internet, but actually it's just individual computers.
Wait, say that again? The internet is not a thing? Is that what you're saying?
It's not, it doesn't have like its own reality. It's not like this, it's not this organic, cohesive being. It's a network of computers.
It's an archive of information.
But what I'm saying is, like you just said, if it's going to be perfect, like if you don't want the internet to decay, it has to be perfect. Like, no, it doesn't have to be. It just depends on who's updating what computer. Like we can keep CatholicPsych website without broken links. And that part of the internet will always be intact without decaying.
Maybe.
It's like saying like houses, like as an aggregate, decay. It's like, the idea of neighborhood decays. It's like, well, what is a neighborhood? A neighborhood's made up of houses. Some houses are kept up and some houses are left to decay. Of course they are. So like, what does that actually mean?
No, but sometimes you have to tear the house down and build up a new one. So if Mike Marshall, instead of coming back to CatholicPsych, went to go live in the Congo, and we didn't have Mike Marshall anymore, and we hired some kind of new creative director, he may not know how Mike Marshall like originally created the designs that he did. Therefore,
yes.
So I'm just saying, like, we may not be able to preserve these.
All I'm saying is
Yeah,
it's not like, oh, what happened? I don't know. It's decaying. Like, no, it's not. It's just like we didn't update that one thing.
sure. No, I don't disagree with that. I think the term decay is a little misleading, but
If people are like, this neighborhood is decaying, it's like, no, there was like one house that was left untouched and nobody kept it up. We had to tear it down. That house is gone. We're rebuilding a new one in its place. Like, it's very
well,
clear.
what's interesting here though is they also say decay is also happening on social media, where just 1 in 5 posts on X collected in a real-time random sample of 4.8 million posts were not available for more than a few months on the site, either because of user's account was deleted or the individual post was removed. Okay, so that's users. Like those posts are gone because the user is deleting the account. I'm wondering if someone is adding a post and it's not their server and the post is deleting, like where is the responsibility for that? Like
Communists.
why is that here we go. Let's go to some of the comments here. Joseph Bramer. Sometimes I think people are just too sensitive about certain things. If you can't laugh at yourselves once in a while, you'll almost always be depressed. I think that's true.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yep.
Can we pull up some photos of your keggers from high school?
No, but I know people who could. So Brain Grandchild is in the zone today. It's Exhibit from Pimp My Ride.
Oh, that meme. Yep, that was great.
Yeah, better that we don't preserve the internet, in his opinion. I'm seeing the long range implications of that as the quickening into the whole transhumanism one world order agenda. Does that make sense? See what he's saying? He's saying that the long range implication of the internet is that we are morphing into a transhuman world, transhuman experience, one world order, globalization. Like we're losing, it's almost like the federal government, right? Like dominating everything, but it's just becoming a world government rather than having, the principle of subsidiarity here and control at a lower level.
I think it's an interesting opinion, but I think that, I guess preserve the internet. I gotta sort of want to unpack that a little bit, but I think the idea is not necessarily preserving the history of the internet, but preserving the internet as an entity that exists in our world. Like currently, I think that's the danger. But I think if we need to maintain history, and that paints the picture of like, look at where we went from like MySpace, which is like individual expressions of people, like, which maybe there was some value to that out of creativity and expression and mixing with technology. Realizing that's where we started, now up to where it's going. If we only had where it is today, it's like, oh, this is the internet. The internet is for groupthink.
Yeah.
The internet is for what's trending on my For You page on TikTok. And then it's like, oh, who's controlling that algorithm? Oh, now that's what the internet is. That's when it gets really dangerous.
Yeah, let me ask you this question. As you were talking, I was thinking about how, of course, it's a good thing to preserve history. Before the internet, we preserved history via collecting books, right? Like that. It's the same kind of phenomenon. I think the big difference is, there's this critique of history as we understand it. It's because the winners always write the history books. You've heard that criticism.
Yeah.
And so we don't have like enough breadth to actually know what happened historically. And so we sort of cherry pick moments in history based on the amount of information or particular information that's accessible to us. And that's how we look at history. But it's not it's not the everyman's history. Oftentimes it's the great man history, which is a problem. But now it's like with the internet, it's literally the everyman history. It's not the great man history. And there's so much wealth of information that's very difficult to like understand it in terms of trends and patterns. And like, we're only looking at it in terms of the trends and patterns at the level. This is the meta level only of what's happening in the internet.
Right.
It's like, it becomes its own history, in other words.
Exactly.
Rather than the history of the world. Like, it's the history of the internet is now our history. So,
yes.
When you talk to me often about how many of our listeners and our viewers and our audience are not even on social media platforms and they don't have a voice. So now that's what's being recorded in history is just people who are engaged in the internet. Is that necessarily a good thing?
Not only that, but it still doesn't speak to the problem that it's the people aren't creating the internet. The internet is not a thing. It's not organic. It's built by coders and programmers. That's why, like, all this stuff, the most obvious example of it now is this AI stuff. And actually, brain grandchild again just said that's why we got to start by getting off Google. Like, that's another perfect example. Like, you type in something into Google and you think that the results are somehow unbiased.
Right. That's controlled.
Now AI, it's like, oh, show me the history of like American, founders or whatever, and it's like, and it won't show white people. It's like something's wrong here. This is very wrong. Like, but this is now that's the most obvious manifestation of a reality that's been present since day one, which is that this internet thing is not this like natural outgrowth. It's not just like this biological development of evolution where like people have now formed and coagulated into this like, now we're just now technologically visible. No, it's like certain individuals are coding things to show up certain ways.
It's curated for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's where it's really dangerous. It's not dangerous that it exists. It's dangerous that people trust it with their humanity. It's like, I'm going to let my brain be formed by whatever is presented to it today, by this thing, by social media, by the Google page, by the news feed, I mean, it's media itself, right? Like,
right.
People that just wake up in the morning, it's like.
This was always true at a less impactful level. It used to be just the newspapers.
Used to be the newspapers. Then it turned into the news shows. It was television. And now it's the internet.
Hollywood.
Right. So it's one thing when it was like, all right, news. Like, I love the history of even journalism, of newspapers. It's like, having, people are trying to sell newspapers. And that's where headlines and hooks came from. Like marketing, the marketing idea of a hook. It's because of a newsboy on a corner shouting.
Extra.
This is before the subscription model. The subscription model changed the truthfulness of news reporting. So before the subscription model, there were newsboys on the corner shouting extra, extra, hear all about it. And then the hookiness of that title stopped the businessmen on their way to the work to stop and buy, I'll give you 5 cents for this newspaper.
The original thumbnail.
It was the original thumbnail.
The newspaper boy.
Right. So then you get the subscription model. So then it became more about reputation. And it was like, all right, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, like, do you have a reputation for good reporting that now I'm going to actually buy a subscription instead of listening to your hooks every Saturday?
Right.
But so then, okay, now you have a television. Now you have, 3 stations, and you have whatever they're saying on that station.
Whatever's pumped out, and you have to believe whatever's. Yeah, you have to. That's your whole world, and that's controlled.
So it's like, how does ABC and NBC, vie for attention? It's like you can flip through these 2 channels, and then, so it's all. But the TV or the newspaper, like, these have like very small corners of your attention, and then the TV had more than the newspaper, and then as TV grew, and then syndications, and then now has more and more time, but it's still just a TV that you turn off. It's in your house.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go around with you in your pocket all day.
No.
That's where we've now reached this critical threshold.
Video killed the radio star. We got questions flooding in here. Before we get to them, we have a lot of comments here. It's great. I was thinking about how Catholic Psych is always attempting to grow and increase our reach, and that includes different parts of the world, and how we've encountered into extending in different parts of the world is that people have an idea of what the United States is like, and it's not. I mean, maybe in a broad sense, there are aspects of it which are accurate, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about who we are, because what the world gets is a Hollywood version or even a news media version of the United States.
Yeah, it's a CNN version of the United States. That's what I remember traveling around Europe, and the way people think about us is completely formed by like CNN.
Yeah, I had a buddy who was traveling, and he was talking to some locals, and they said, "Oh, I would never come to the United States. I wouldn't want to get shot." As if it's like the Wild West over here. Like, I mean, there are shootings, which are terrible, but it's not like I walk out the front door of my house
We're
and I'm
like
like
all living in like
dodging bullets. You know?
1980s Compton. We're all like,
Yeah, that's not the US. All right, let's jump into some of these questions. This is great. The internet has opened. This is Taylor Hughes. The internet has opened the way for some bishops and priests to try to be like the Pope, calling all Catholics to prayer, and I think that needs to be reeled in. I think that is, one of the dangers is when Catholics get a platform to erode trust in hierarchy and authority. I would agree with that.
yeah, he continued his comment after that. He said, when a pastor refers to a popular social media star bishop as his authority for something, instead of his own bishop or the Pope, and especially when the popular cleric opposes the Pope, that's a problem.
I agree.
I agree with that 100%. And I see this too, it just gives platform to opinions and popular opinions on such a different scale. I mean, we've always had this. This has always been true in the history of the church. You can see this in letters, writings of different saints at different times speak out against things like this. There's an incredible book of writing by Pope Saint Gregory the Great. Is it my patron? And he's got a book is an ancient, like very ancient traditional work called the Pastoral Care, or the Pastoral Rule. I forgot. It's got different translations, but there's he speaks out about this, and so this is not
a long time ago.
This is nothing new.
This is why we want to preserve history.
Exactly.
We need that book, don't we?
And so, but just the difference now is just the widespread platform that people have, because we're carrying around. It's not just a preacher who's coming through your town and stands in the square, on one afternoon in the month. It's like literally in everybody's pocket all day long.
Yeah.
So, big problem.
Yeah. Going back to brain grandchild, the idea of, quote, "we don't know what happened throughout history," unquote, is dangerous ground. Not attacking you, but that thought idea leads back to questioning Christendom and even Scripture. Well, I mean, we can trust Scripture. We take Scripture on faith, right? I mean, Christendom. It might actually be good to question some of the behaviors within Christendom over the course of the last 2,000 years. What else? Well, there's a lot of corruption in the church. There's a lot of problems within church history. I mean, doesn't mean that it's not the one true church.
There's an awesome book I'm reading right now by Monsignor John Shea, who gave that crowd rousing talk at Sikh conference, and then talk about another internet sensation. Now everybody knows who Monsignor Shea is because he gave this one 24-minute talk at Sikh. Yeah. And it was a great talk. But Monsignor Shea has been a great president and priest. He's president of the University of Mary long before he ever gave a quick internet sensation talk. But he wrote this book called From Christendom to Apostolic Times. And he basically paints this picture that history moves as like a pendulum between two kinds of cultures. Either Christendom, where Christianity is the accepted norm, and then all of culture is built upon that foundation, or apostolic times, when it's a secular, relativistic kind of, pantheistic, whatever culture, and then we have to be like apostles, like the original apostles, like basically having much more of an evangelical discipleship and a heart of kind of going against the current. And he makes a great argument about this. And he says, number one, our biggest problem is that people don't realize we're not in Christendom anymore. But he said the thing, almost to your point precisely, he says that the danger of being in the times of Christendom is that you just don't take things seriously enough, and we sort of are lax in our deepening of our faith, and kind of take for granted so much of our faith.
Well, I think about our parents' childhood where there were so many Catholics around, and it was like,
Right.
but they weren't really Catholics. They were Catholics in name only.
Right, and we're sort of in that shift transition from one epoch to another where it's like,
Yeah.
going from Christendom to apostolic times. And so we have to wake up. But now that's what's happening. So people are waking up and people are getting really serious about this. I think the more important phase is to go internal and personal for conversion and
Sure.
look at how we are, each of us individually has to still grow. But
Sure. All right, some more thoughts here. Anne Thelen. A lot of it is a distraction from being present and fully engaged in the lives we are called to be living. Internet has become a reality, a trap to keep us from authentic living. Absolutely. That's something we focus on at Catholic Psych, is learning how to be present in the moment and be where you are and to not escape. There are a lot of different ways to escape. I think the internet makes it very easy to escape. I think it's been amplified. I mean, once upon a time you could read a book and escape.
right.
But that doesn't grab your neural interface of your experience that pulls you completely out so you can escape in a way that's blocks out everything else. It doesn't draw you in with the same power as the internet does now, or not even just the internet, but social media is specifically designed to keep you addicted, which here we are flip-flopping. I know that it's very dangerous. Doom scrolling and everything else is designed to keep you there and
Right.
keep you escaped, even in some ways, against your will. You're not even choosing to escape. You can put a book down. I mean, sometimes you might lose track of time when you're reading or
Yeah.
watching a show, but scrolling on social media is a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's addictive. There's just engaging the addictive brain process. And, the people who create these apps and who've created this situation have done it really intentionally.
Yeah. This is a great point. Just like we received education in the 80s about how to be savvy to TV advertising. By the way, I don't remember that. I think that's great, though. And the need to have critical thinking skills regarding media, we presently need to develop education around AI. I mean, I agree with that. I think that would be awesome. I think it has to come from somebody who's deeply familiar with AI to help us realize how we can sort of take a step back from AI to see AI and how to relate to AI. We're just getting flooded with AI right now. We need
Right.
someone sort of on top of AI that knows it so well to help protect us.
This is actually, I was thinking about, I think implicit in this too, because she says advertising, but I think that's actually it's experts in marketing.
Mm.
And I was thinking, that's such an interesting comment from Catherine that I think I don't really remember good education on that at all in the 90s at least. But I was just thinking, for whatever reason, the ShamWow came to mind. Remember the ShamWow?
No.
So this guy did infomercials and he had this yellow cloth and he could use it to wipe
To
off
clean
water.
everything.
It cleans
Yeah.
everything. It dries off your car.
Yes.
It's and he just is an internet millionaire, an advertising millionaire because he was a great advertiser. He did
It's
these
basically
awesome.
a couple paper towels stuck together. That's
Yeah.
all it was, right? Yeah, my mom has. I think my mom still has that. She saves it. I think she gave it to my wife, and I think I have one in my house. Anyway.
Anyways, this is, I mean, the ShamWow. Okay, it's great, but advertising taps into our psychology.
Yeah.
And this is where marketing and psychology can be really useful. And at the end of the day, it's advertising and marketing can be really good when it helps convey the value of something that we really want and need. But the real question is, are people discerning enough what they really want and need?
Yeah.
Because this is the same problem. It's you're up at, it's 11 o'clock at night and the ShamWow commercial comes on. And because of the marketing, it's I need that.
Well, and if you're up, I mean, it's not a coincidence that those infomercials used to be on in the wee hours of the morning. When
Right.
you're in your lowest place, you can't sleep, you're vulnerable.
Yes.
You get that dopamine hit when you call and order that item.
Yes. I just got 17 ShamWows free. I only had to pay for 3 of them.
Yeah.
I needed 20 ShamWows. Yeah, I only paid $700 for it.
Yeah.
But it's more about preparing ourselves with discernment and understanding what we really want and need before entering into a process to say, okay, how do I get what I really want and need? But we have to wrap up for today. It's 12.
Yeah.
But this is
What I love the engagement. You know, I'm part of me is wondering if we start our show a little bit too early because as we went on today, we had a lot of comments.
yeah, maybe
Great to see.
we can look at that as well. Timing is always we're
'Cause I think,
we're still locking in our timing here.
yeah, I mean, we went live one day at 11:30 Eastern, and we didn't have a lot of engagement that day. So maybe it's just day of the week. Maybe it's Friday and people are done working.
Yeah, I
They
think
j
so.
they just wanna hang out.
Fridays are a good day to spend some time with us. Hopefully everything we're providing here on social media is valuable and makes you
Yes.
think about things and gets you to step out of the social media malaise and sort of cloud.
Camping,
Definitely don't want to
Storyland.
be part of anything that is brainwashing and warping people. We got to fight against it. So that's why we're here. And we love the engagement. So keep it up, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. And can't wait to hear from you on Monday. We'll see how your Storyland trip was. I'll tell you about my camping and meet and greet and all sorts of fun stuff.
Pray for me.
I'm praying for you.